ragamuffin keeps striving in every way. International, what they call me international. When me ride palm rhythm and I move, but the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm rhythm and then we sit down steady. Fatty me on the place, I with the one Jamalski. We are the general. We sit up on the rhythm and over the mic incredible. I'll be right part of the rhythm, move the rhythm, I sit down steady. Every ragamuffin you do, I feel rock and follow me. Jump up on the rhythm, make we ride it. We chat up on the mic and keep it international. Cause anytime we jump on mic, they call we give it a general. International, when me ride palm rhythm and I move with the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm rhythm and then we sit down steady. Fatty me on the place, I with the one Jamalski.
Yes. What's up, everybody? Joshua Casper here with Plug-in Boutique and Rhodes, and a couple special guests today. We're joined by James Blake, who's a Grammy-winning songwriter and producer, and James Smith, who is the lead singer for Yard Act and also the talent behind the vocals that were a part of this competition. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Very well.
Thanks, Jeff.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
James Smith, I'm gonna call you Smith if you don't mind, and you Blake, and that's the best way we can kind of keep the two James. It might get a little confusing, so if you don't mind, I'll just say James Smith and Blake.
Yeah, of course.
So Smith, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and also a little bit about the project that was kind of the driving force behind this competition?
Yeah. So my main project is a band called Yard Act that started a couple of years ago. That's been doing all right, and that's my job now. And just by complete coincidence, when Rhodes got their name back, they actually started their factory where they're making the pianos about 500 yards from my house. So when they wanted to do this competition and they wanted to get spoken word artiste to get involved in it, I kind of fit the brief, being from Leeds and being based in Leeds, but also because I walk past it every day pretty much, and it's mad that it's back here in Leeds now. So I feel it feels quite close to me. I'm very proud to have Rhodes around the corner from me.
Yeah, it's a great little factory. I've been out there as well. I shot out there with Steve Levine. I'm not sure if you saw the video, but great factory, great, just a great history there. And do you have a Mark 8 at home, or are you waiting on yours?
No, I've been given the plug-in so far, but Rhodes have promised me one, so I'm looking forward to that arriving at our studio, which is about 500 yards further down the road in the factory. So.
Oh wow,
yeah,
absolutely phenomenal. And Mr. Blake, How about you? How are you involved with this competition? Are you just simply here to lend your ear and your expertise?
I'm not getting anything out of this. I'm just hanging out. I just come. I felt a bit lonely this morning, and they told me there was a live stream, so I'm here.
Whoa, that's absolutely fantastic. Is that a Rhodes you have behind you?
It is. I've got a Student 73
Ooh-wee.
right there. Yeah, which I love to death. It's they're quite rare, and they've got this amazing kind of innocent sound to them. And the first time I ever played one was at Electric Lady Studios in New York. And it was actually Stevie Wonder's, or the one that he loved when he went there, and I think he bought it and then maybe sold it back to them. I can't remember the story of it, but I kept going back to it. I was there for like a month, and I kept going back there to this Rhodes, and I recorded a bunch on it, and then I just couldn't find one, and they wouldn't sell it to me, obviously. So I spent months and months and months, probably about a year and a half, looking for another Student 73 in good condition, and finally found one, and so here it is.
Brilliant. Has it found its way into any of your recently released projects?
Yeah, into the Before EP, onto my album with, like, on Friends That Break Your Heart was my last album. That had some Rhodes on it. Yeah, I you know, Rhodes is just a very inspiring sound. I mean, I don't, you know, I'm not always in the mood for a piano, and I just having it like right next to me to kind of write at is always, I don't know, it brings something different out of me. So I love it, and chord clusters just sound different when they're put through that kind of world of, I don't know, physics.
Absolutely. Well, so we're here today to play for the community the top 5 submissions to the Missing Keys Rhodes competition. And speaking of the magic of an actual Rhodes piano, first, if you haven't tried out the V8, which is the first official instrument or virtual instrument from Rhodes, you need to check it out. But we will make one lucky person, well, not lucky really, because they've done a phenomenal job, obviously, a very happy person, because they're going to win a Mark 8, which is the newest Rhodes electric piano. I believe there was over 5,000 entries into this competition. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. We had quite a bunch to get through, but we've whittled it down to 5. And what we're going to do is play those now for the community. And after it's done, we'll come back on and we'll hear both of your thoughts about it. The good, the bad, the ugly. And towards the end of the stream, once we've gone through everything, we'll go ahead and pick a winner to win the new Mark 8. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Nice.
Sounds good to me.
While we're in the giving mood, I'm also going to be giving away 3 V8 Pro licenses to people who are watching the stream. So to do that, all you need to do is be active in the chat and being positive. So you can fire away some questions or just make your remarks about the tracks we're about to listen to, or just be all around good people. And we're going to choose 3 random people and announce those people at the end of the stream to get a copy of the V8 Pro. So first video up, and before we jump in, let's say what we're judging these on. We're judging them on creativity, the composition, the mix down, and how well the track relates to the vocals by Mr. Smith. It was kind of like a spoken word / poetry poem, right?
Yeah.
I like that.
It wasn't written for music, and when it was recorded, it wasn't recorded to click. So it's the natural meter of the track. So it is slightly loose.
Go ahead.
Changes things. That changes things because it's harder to produce to something with no click or no sort of defined tempo. So these people have gone to some lengths to. They've either had to record it all live or pull some trickery, which I respect.
Absolutely. It's a powerful piece as well. I was really impressed with not only the lyrics, but the delivery. It was really, really great piece, and I was very impressed with some of the entries that I got to listen to, including the next 5 we're about to hear. So I think we'll just go ahead and jump right in. And the first submission is from Chris Vela. And I have put all of these people's names over the video because some of them I won't be able to say correctly, so apologies in advance for that. But first up, we've got Chris. Let's take a listen.
What's in a name? What if you could reclaim your name, shine light on an old flame, let sparks fly and get back in the game again? Can you even begin to pretend that old name still has the same domain? Yeah, can you branch out with a new tribe and still stick with the pack? Can we sustain the same vibe knowing we can never go back? Can you retain that singular train track vision whilst everything you thought made you is stripped away and glossed over with pristine precision? We wanted the old way, but we're craving the upgrade, an update that can accommodate our music is now made. The kids today, hey, they're forging their own wave, a new take on the way that every same old note's played. Cause they retain the essence, they're focused, they listen, and they know the only lesson that truly matters is that sound itself has no discipline. We're all just standing on the shoulders of giants, we're all just trying to please our clients. Yeah, we're all logos and brands, cap locks and ampersands, but quietly we're quite defiant, cause we know what we're doing with our heart, head and hands. We're all beholden to the factory line. If the hand that holds the hammer's mine, then the hammer hits different. A hammer to the head from the heart is just fine. You've heard it all before, yeah? But somehow this sounds better. Are you smitten? It's like a pillow being pummeled by a piston. Like a panther with its pants down, purring like a kitten. White keys, black keys, red bricks. Same dog, old skin, new tricks. The sound of the click when the pedal lifts. Needles drift into the red like the gift of hot licks. It sounds just the way it always did, just the way that it's supposed to. But we don't let the notion of progress become the ghost that we play host to. Cause we're classic, still at it like the golden years. And still we aren't beholden solely to the old ideas. And speaking of soul, if you're gonna sell yours, you may as well sell soul. So without offending any competing parties, as far as electric pianos go, all roads lead to Rhodes, and Rhodes is where the heart is. Now you know.
All right, so that was the submission from Chris Vela. Mr. Smith, let's hear your thoughts on that piece first.
I really liked it. I thought it developed sonically throughout. It was great. The pads and the sort of distant sort of echoing percussion off to the side, panned off, was nice. It sort of evoked, for me, that really evoked sort of memories of the factory workers, which connected to the lyrics about the factory line, and trying to sort of lean on the sort of industrial history of Leeds, but in a modern contemporary environment where they make piano plugins and Rhodes pianos. I really like that. It definitely had the classic, what I would call the classic Rhodes sound, and I've invented the word here, velvety, which I think sums that up fairly well. When the beat came in, I got a little bit lost with it. I didn't think it connected with the words quite as I would imagine it. I know I just said it was off grid, so I would have maybe liked a little bit more consideration from the crafting of the beat to kind of not just be locked on and sort of move between the words a little bit. But overall, I thought it was great. I thought the piano progressions were really nice. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good, strong piece that worked really well.
Do you know if you were allowed to manipulate the vocal at all? Like if I were like in Ableton, could I move around the transients of the vocal, or was that off limits for this competition?
I don't think that was set in stone.
James,
I mean, it is quite on grid.
My vocals. That's what he said.
Yeah.
No, you've been warned. No, I don't care. I wanted to sound like a chipmunk. I was disappointed. No, I think you could if you wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
I didn't feel like the beat communicated with the words, whereas I felt musically it really did. So it just felt like the when the beat kicked in, it felt like maybe it wasn't slightly as considered as the rest of it. But that's a small critique and an otherwise great piece of craft.
I only asked because each one of the clips that we have is exactly the same length, so it seems like no one manipulated the vocal.
Cool.
So something to consider going forward. Blake, how about you?
So I actually wrote down that the beat kind of brought me out of it as well. And two of us can't be wrong, can we? So, but I wrote, it felt like the right chords for the emotion of the poem. I'm kind of, chord obsessed. So when I, in my judgment, I'll be probably focusing quite heavily on that. And I really liked the chords. I thought they represented the sort of the quietly quite defiant line quite nicely, and the general feeling of the poem. So I loved the percussion in the background before the beat came in. They didn't get in the way, or it didn't get in the way. And because, mercifully, the beat didn't actually stay in for that long, so it didn't distract me for too long. I think it was only in for like 5-10 seconds, so that was okay. But I liked it resolving on the chord, on the tonic chord, like back, just kind of landing. It was nice, the chord it ended on. I think it was one of my favorites, just for being such a good encapsulation of what James was saying. It was just the beat that did it for me. So yeah.
All right. Fair assessment. I think we keep moving on, and the next one up is, it could be Gael or Gael, Benny Yamin. Let's take a listen.
What's in a name? And what if you could reclaim your name, shine light on an old flame, let sparks fly and get back in the game again? Can you even begin to pretend that old name still has the same domain? Yeah, can you branch out with a new tribe and still stick with the pack? Can we sustain the same vibe knowing we can never go back? Can you retain that singular train track vision, whilst everything you thought made you is stripped away and glossed over with pristine precision? We wanted the old way, but we're craving the upgrade, an update that can accommodate our music is now made. The kids today, hey, they're forging their own wave, a new take on the way that every same old note's played. Cause they retain the essence, they're focused, they listen, and they know the only lesson that truly matters is that sound itself has no discipline. We're all just standing on the shoulders of giants, we're all just trying to please our clients. Yeah, we're all logos and brands, cap locks and ampersands, but quietly we're quite defiant, cause we know what we're doing with our heart, head and hands. We're all beholden to the factory line, but if the hand that holds the hammer's mine, then the hammer hits different. A hammer to the head from the heart is just fine. You've heard it all before, yeah? But somehow this sounds better. Are you smitten? It's like a pillow being pummeled by a piston, like a panther with its pants down, purring like a kitten. White keys, black keys, red bricks. Same dog, old skin, new tricks. The sound of the click when the pedal lifts, needles drip into the red like the gift of hot licks. It sounds just the way it always did, just the way that it's supposed to. But we don't let the notion of progress become the ghost that we play host to. Cause we're classic, still at it like the golden years, and still we aren't beholden solely to the old ideas. Or speaking of soul, if you're gonna sell yours, you may as well sell soul. So without offending any competing parties, as far as electric pianos go, all roads lead to Rhodes, and Rhodes is where the heart is. Now you know.
All right, there we go. That was Gael. Again, apologies for not pronouncing that right if I didn't. This time we'll start with you, Blake, if you want to give us your thoughts on that piece by Gael.
Yeah, I'm going to say Gael.
Okay, that's fine.
I reckon it's Gael. But if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, Gael.
Let us know in the chat, please.
Let us know. Nice switch. What I've written down is I had a nice switch of chords on. They listen and they know the only lesson that truly matters is the sound itself. That sound itself has no discipline, and I thought the chord switch there was really smart and kind of brought sort of gravitas to it. I think there was some choices like that through the piece that I thought were very clever. And I think it was telling when someone's producing this vocal, like what they choose to highlight and what they choose to kind of just skip over. And there were some important lines in that poem, and I think that was actually one of them. Then I wrote that the production towards the end starts to capture the feeling of the poem, probably best it has throughout the track, but only for around 15-20 seconds. And I think the rest of the piece didn't capture it as well for me. The triplet hi-hats towards the end I quite enjoyed, but I mean that's a small thing. But I liked it. It wasn't my favourite, but I did like it, and I think there was some very accomplished moments.
All right. What about you, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it used the whole sonic spectrum quite playfully. I like the way that right at the end it played with the bass and sort of dug quite deep on the bass to being sort of quite melodic and high up in the start and throughout. I thought there was some nice sort of side chaining and some nice little sort of production cuts and that to sort of highlight certain vocals where certain, there was just quite harsh cuts on certain bits to sort of it felt like it was pumping quite nicely, and I could tell that a lot of thought and consideration had gone into it. It definitely felt a lot of thought in the box had gone into it to craft it around the vocal, which I liked. It felt like it wasn't, funnily enough, it felt like it wasn't that, despite I could hear the consideration that had gone into sort of crafting it around my vocal. I also felt like it gave off an air that it wasn't too bothered by the voice, and it was kind of working separately to it, and they were kind of just occasionally interlocking, and then it'd go off and do its own thing and let the voice do its own thing, and I quite like that. It was quite an interesting. Yeah. It's quite a hard thing to achieve that when you're writing music, to create two separate parts that can prove they can be together but choose not to be. And I like that about it. I thought a lot of thought had gone into it, and that was a good thing. Yeah.
Okay, great. Good job, Gael. We're going with Gael. Well done, Gael. Next up, we've got Janis or Janis Thor. Again, apologies about the names, but let's take a listen.
What's in a name? And what if you could reclaim your name, shine light on an old flame, let sparks fly and get back in the game again? Can you even begin to pretend that old name still has the same domain? Yeah, can you branch out with a new tribe and still stick with the pack? Can we sustain the same vibe knowing we can never go back? Can you retain that singular train track vision, whilst everything you thought made you is stripped away and glossed over with pristine precision? We want it the old way, but we're craving the upgrade, an update that can accommodate our music is now made. The kids today, hey, they're forging their own wave, a new take on the way that every same old note's played. Cause they retain the essence, they're focused, they listen, and they know the only lesson that truly matters is that sound itself has no discipline. We're all just standing on the shoulders of giants, we're all just trying to please our clients. Yeah, we're all logos and brands, cap locks and ampersands, but quietly we're quite defiant, cause we know what we're doing with our heart, head and hands. We're all beholden to the factory line, but if the hand that holds the hammer's mine, then the hammer hits different. A hammer to the head from the heart is just fine. You've heard it all before, yeah, but somehow this sounds better. Are you smitten? It's like a pillow being pummeled by a piston, like a panther with its pants down, purring like a kitten. White keys, black keys, red bricks. Same dog, old skin, new tricks. The sound of the click when the pedal lifts, needles drift into the red like the gift of hot licks. It sounds just the way it always did, just the way that it's supposed to. But we don't let the notion of progress become the ghost that we play host to. Cause we're classic, still at it like the golden years, and still we aren't beholden solely to the old ideas. And speaking of soul, if you're gonna sell yours, you may as well sell soul. So without offending any competing parties, as far as electric pianos go, all roads lead to Rhodes, and Rhodes is where the heart is. Now you know.
All right, there we go. That was the third submission from Janis Thor. Mr. Smith, please take it away. What did you think about that one?
This one wasn't one of my favourites, unfortunately. It felt the most like an advert out of all of them, and advertising has its place. So I don't mean that in a negative, but for me, it didn't really connect. It had a bit of a sort of Röyksopp kind of vibe, and I like Röyksopp, so it's not a bad thing. I just didn't know if it felt like the music didn't really connect with the words for me. And I couldn't hear that much of the Rhodes, really. I felt like the arpeggiating synths kind of dominated track a little more than the essence of the Rhodes that we were kind of looking for. And again, yeah, the drum beat was very busy, but I didn't feel like that was necessary. And yeah, I couldn't get past the arpeggiators on this one, unfortunately.
Kind of stole the show and took away from the actual Rhodes, which is supposed to be the focus of the composition, I believe.
Yeah, sorry. That's just the way
Still top five.
You've ruined everything. We're all...
I feel awful. I knew I was going to have a hard time telling the truth on this one.
You've just pissed on the parade, and we're all upset.
I know. Sorry. I feel like I've let you down as well, Josh, and you, James. It's
well, mostly you've let yourself down. That's the biggest takeaway, I'm afraid.
It hurts me to see you hurt. That's what's really happening here.
Yeah, it's hard.
Blake, what about you?
I agree. I actually agree with you. But I also disagree with you. Okay, this is where. So I think you're right. It does kind of a bit sound like an advert, and it also sounds not close to the brief in a way. But one thing I did think about it was that the singular train track vision lyric, which is early in the poem, I thought that was really nicely representative. The whole track felt like locomotive. It felt like, the arpeggiators create this like interlocking rhythm, right? And as a piece of music outside of, if you were to take the vocals away, I think it might be more kind of bland than some of the other offerings here. But as an accompaniment to your vocals, I thought that the rising chord progression was exactly what. So this kind of like dun, 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 it's like it's just always kind of ascending, and to me, that was exactly the right feeling for the poem, because it's, like you say, quietly defiant, but it was quietly aspirational as well, right? Which I felt like was the vibe of the poem all the way through. And to me, that's very English. To me, this one was the most English of all of them. It was like, it never quite reaches a crescendo. It never is fully allowed to express itself. And I think that captures the emotion. Your delivery, it's kind of like, you're never like super passionate in your delivery. You're just kind of like quietly aspirational and quietly defiant and quietly all those things. And I think that's what's beautiful about the way you've delivered it. And I think this synth actually captured it beautifully, and it felt like the most direct representation of the poem for me. Even though, maybe the production could have sounded a tiny bit adverty. I think it was one of my favorites because it just, as a direct word painting of what was happening, for me, it felt like one of the most direct versions of that. And hey, like that, I don't mean to, I know you didn't love it, so that's not meant as an insult to the poem itself, but that's how I heard it.
I'm really glad you loved it. I think that is it's highlighted. You said it was one of your favourites.
We're gonna up in the
that has to be loved,
gentlemen. Let me jump in though, real quick before we continue.
I loved it.
Janis or Janis is in the chat, and he says that the arpeggio was the Rhodes plugin.
There we go.
So
your own Rhodes plugin, you can't complain that it doesn't sound like a fucking Rhodes. Sorry, excuse me.
I can't. You're right. And I I should explore the arpeggio. I think I'm old at heart, and I'm attached to. The poem does talk about progression and pushing forward, and I haven't explored the arpeggiator functions on the plugin yet, and I shouldn't be obsessed with the vintage sound of a Rhodes. I should be exploring where it could go going forwards, and I do apologise, Janis, or Janis.
We have that in
You're
writing.
right. You're right. So that is the Rhodes sound. It's not the Rhodes sound I associate with Rhodes, but it is the Rhodes sound.
So
Things are changing.
the chat is giving a lot of love to that, and I made some notes as well. I'm obviously letting you two speak on it, but I also had sort of evolving in bold, and it kind of felt like a journey. And I think it was mainly because, as you were saying, Blake, just like it felt like it was going up and up and up the whole way through, and I quite enjoyed that. It was almost like bringing me along with your lyrics. But that's all right. That's all right. It's great.
I'm glad that you guys in the chat loved it, because I don't think I'm always right, and so I'm
Neither do I.
happy.
Yeah. You don't think he's always right, or you're always right?
And hey, it might not have been my favorite of the 5, but those top 5 entries, they were all still great, and
they're all high quality. And
everyone,
when we say all these things, we're saying it in the context like these were high quality submissions. So all this feedback is meant with we're splitting hairs in a way, but valid hairs.
Valid, yeah. Every hair on the head is valid.
Well, it's all music is all, can be very subjective. Obviously, there is some technical aspect to it, but I mean, it's 1% of all the submissions is what we're listening to right now. So no matter what, well done to the 5 people that we're showcasing here. And I think all 3 of us think they're absolutely phenomenal. And we're just pointing out the little bits that maybe didn't resonate as well. So let's move on to the next one. We've got Max Rumiano. Let's check it out.
What's in a name? And what if you could reclaim your name, shine light on an old flame, let sparks fly and get back in the game again? Can you even begin to pretend that old name still has the same domain? Yeah, can you branch out with a new tribe and still stick with the pack? Can we sustain the same vibe knowing we can never go back? Can you retain that singular train track vision, whilst everything you thought made you is stripped away and glossed over with pristine precision? We wanted the old way, but we're craving the upgrade, an update that can accommodate our music is now made. The kids today, hey, they're forging their own wave, a new take on the way that every same old note's played. Cause they retain the essence, they're focused, they listen, and they know the only lesson that truly matters is that sound itself has no discipline. We're all just standing on the shoulders of giants, we're all just trying to please our clients. Yeah, we're all logos and brands, cap locks and ampersands, but quietly we're quite defiant, cause we know what we're doing with our heart, head and hands. We're all beholden to the factory line, and if the hand that holds the hammer's mine, then the hammer hits different. A hammer to the head from the heart is just fine. You've heard it all before, yeah? But somehow this sounds better. Are you smitten? It's like a pillow being pummeled by a piston, like a panther with its pants down, purring like a kitten. White keys, black keys, red bricks. Same dog, old skin, new tricks. The sound of the click when the pedal lifts, needles drift into the red like the gift of hot licks. It sounds just the way it always did, just the way that it's supposed to. But we don't let the notion of progress become the ghost that we play host to. Cause we're classic, still at it like the golden years, and still we aren't beholden solely to the old ideas. And speaking of soul, if you're gonna sell yours, you may as well sell soul. So without offending any competing parties, as far as electric pianos go, all roads lead to Rhodes, and Rhodes is where the heart is. Now you know.
All right, there we go. That was Max Rumiano, and Blake, we'll let you start with this one.
Oh, okay. This was my least favorite, because although I think it's a very well executed track. It's a well executed track, and I think outside of this competition, I'd say well done. But for me, the chords, it's lovely chords, lovely production, accomplished, but it doesn't sound anything like what James is saying for me. It misses, to me, it missed the vibe of the poem. So
do you think the chords themselves were missing the vibe, or how they were delivered? Or
yeah, they're nice, but they're just it's that kind of like slightly, for me, it felt like slightly disconnected jazz hip hop type thing that it wasn't striking any emotional notes for me that kind of resonated with what James was saying, which for me is that means missing the point, because the point for me is representing the poem.
Understood. Mr. Smith.
So kind of in to counter how we felt about the last one, I basically feel the same towards this one as James felt about the last one compared to how I did. I've just explained that in a really convoluted way.
So you're saying you liked it?
Yeah, I did like it. But I know exactly what James is saying. It doesn't feel that connected to my vocal. It almost feels quite arrogantly obnoxious in kind of ignoring him and just doing its own thing. But I was kind of drawn to that because I find stuff like that stuff funny. There's a record. I don't know if there's a record called The Hustlers Convention, which is one of the last poets with Kool and the Gang as his backing band, and Kool and the Gang are kind of doing their thing. They hadn't heard any of the music, and he recorded all his vocals separately, and then they just put them on top, and it's kind of got that vibe for me, and it resonated with me, even though I also get that emotively it doesn't really serve the track. There was a lot I liked about it though, and maybe funnily enough, despite the fact, because I wrote and recorded this part so long ago, maybe I'm not as connected to it anymore as I once was. So I was more drawn to the music, and I kind of forgot about what I was doing in this one. As a piece of music, I liked it. Whether it's a bit of debrief is another question, but I did really enjoy it.
I think it was. I agree with both of you. This was actually my favorite. It is not as connected to the vocals as I would have liked it to be, but when I was listening, this was the fourth one I listened to, so I was just focused on the music bit. I think, kind of going to what you were saying, as an instrumental, I think it's absolutely great.
It's cat's tail, very close.
It happens to us all.
Yeah, but no, I did like it. I think, maybe like you were saying, it stands out the most compared to the rest of them. So for it to be the fourth one, it kind of maybe reset my brain a little bit. So I got a little bit out of that as well.
All right. Well, we'll keep rocking here. We got one more to get through. We're going to check out, this is Thilo, Acorn, and let's check it out and come right back.
What's in a name? And what if you could reclaim your name, shine light on an old flame, let sparks fly and get back in the game again? Can you even begin to pretend that old name still has the same domain? Yeah, can you branch out with a new tribe and still stick with the pack? Can we sustain the same vibe knowing we can never go back? Can you retain that singular train track vision, whilst everything you thought made you is stripped away and glossed over with pristine precision? We wanted the old way, but we're craving the upgrade, an update that can accommodate our music is now made. The kids today, hey, they're forging their own wave, a new take on the way that every same old note's played. Because they retain the essence, they're focused, they listen, and they know the only lesson that truly matters is that sound itself has no discipline. We're all just standing on the shoulders of giants, we're all just trying to please our clients. Yeah, we're all logos and brands, cap locks and ampersands, but quietly we're quite defiant, because we know what we're doing with our heart, head and hands. We're all beholden to the factory line, but if the hand that holds the hammer's mine, then the hammer hits different. A hammer to the head from the heart is just fine. You've heard it all before, yeah? But somehow this sounds better. Are you smitten? It's like a pillow being pummeled by a piston. like a panther with its pants down, purring like a kitten. White keys, black keys, red bricks. Same dog, old skin, new tricks. The sound of the click when the pedal lifts, needles drift into the red like the gift of hot licks. It sounds just the way it always did, just the way that it's supposed to. But we don't let the notion of progress become the ghost that we play host to. Cause we're classic, still at it like the golden years. And still we aren't beholden solely to the old ideas. And speaking of soul, if you're gonna sell yours, you may as well sell soul. So without offending any competing parties, as far as electric pianos go, all roads lead to Rhodes, and Rhodes is where the heart is. Now you know.
Get yourself in the chat.
Here we go. And we're back. All right, so that was Thilo Acorn. And Mr. Smith, we're going to start with you this time. Oh, actually, let me cut you off before you even started. If you're just joining us, we're here with James Blake and James Smith, and we're discussing the 5 finalists for the Missing Keys Rhodes competition. And we're going to choose one winner to win a Mark 8 along with some other goodies. All of the people here today will get a copy of the V8 Pro. In addition to that, 3 people at random in the chat will also get the V8 Pro from Rhodes today. So all you need to do is be active in the chat, and we're going to choose 3 lucky people and announce those winners at the end of the stream. But with that being said, let's hear Mr. Smith's interpretation of the Thilo Acorn interpretation of his poem.
Yeah, I think I'd probably say this was my favourite. I felt it was the most sort of film-esque scene setting of the 5. I liked that it kept threatening to go darker and drop into something, and that it didn't, because I felt there was enough sort of texture and there was enough sort of interplay and enough sort of nuance for it to refrain from doing that. I felt it was communicating well with the vocals, and the synths at the end lifted it really nicely. Yeah, the shifts all seemed to happen at the right points for me, and it felt tense. It felt like it embodied the essence of the song, which is, you know, we're capable of more than we're letting on as a brand or as an individual. And there's a darkness to that, because it's a threat. And I felt the drones and the whole arrangement of it suited it. I liked it.
Would you think angst would be a good word to describe what the emotion of it?
The piece.
Yeah.
I think there is some. I think defiance. I think there's a defiance to the way I wrote it, and I think there's a defiance to the way Thilo scored the piece underneath. I think the way that they did it, it was like, but it was bubbling. It was a tension piece, and I think because the other 4 entries weren't like that, I was drawn to it. I liked it.
Mr. Blake.
I liked this one as well. I thought there were some like key bits of word painting that I thought were really smart. I liked the chords. I liked they were kind of wistful. I liked the hammer line where you talk about hammer hitting a pillow. I think it was. Yeah. Well, no, it was a piston hitting a pillow and a hammer. There was a hammer line. I can't remember.
It's just right. Yeah, when the hammer, the thing that holds the hammer hits just right.
The hammer hits just right.
It's just been on, and I can't remember it.
And then the bass came in just on that line, which I quite liked. It's a subtle thing, but I did clock it. And then I liked the white keys, black keys, and then you get this piano riff in the background. You get this piano kind of twirl, glissando, and then I thought the use of Rhodes was really good in this one. Like, if we're judging based on how the Rhodes is used, then I think this was definitely a good one. Because for me, like, you know, I get this is a Rhodes competition, but ultimately, like, you know, just having it front and center just for the sake of it doesn't make any sense to me. Like you're using it based on what makes the track feel good. And so some tracks might not feel like the Rhodes was used in a traditional way, or not in an upfront way, or not in a kind of way that like centers the Rhodes. But at the same time, for me, in music, we don't make music based on, you know, like whether one instrument is centered. We have to kind of go with the emotion of the song. So for me, as a piece of music, this one did that well. And one thing that I found very distracting was that phaser at the end. To me, it took me out of it. And for when your words at the end are so important, I thought having this kind of very, like, you know, I don't know, it's like a phaser kind of turned up to 100. And to me, it distracted from the words. So from a, you know, if I were marking it based on, like, you know, doing its job as a composition, then that would be a couple points off for me. But I did really like it.
Wonderful. Well, that's the 5 finalists.
That's it.
Congratulations to all 5 of you. It's really incredible to you know, be part of the 1%, if not less than 1% of all of the entries. Lots and lots of great entries outside of just the 5 we listened to here today. But we got to pick one winner. Everyone's going to walk away with a V8 Pro license. I believe some plugins from Plugin Boutique. But only one person is going to get that Mark 8. And we need to make a decision, fellas, on whose that's going to be. So while we're taking a second to think about it, for those who are tuned in, let us know in the comments or in the chat who you think won. And just put the number. You don't need to elaborate. Just put 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So we'll start with you, Mr. Blake. Is there a particular piece that you feel is way out in front, or are there one or two that are kind of close together there for the number 1 spot?
For me, the Thilo Acorn is that how you say it? Yeah, we're gonna go with it.
Yep.
That and Chris Vela's and Janis Tura's ones were my favorites.
All right.
I felt like it's like not any of them for me were perfect, but I don't think we're looking for perfection here. We're looking for something that really represents the poem, and nothing is perfect, and we have to go with what's the emotion behind it. And for me, those 3 struck the best emotional notes. And I think this might not be the most, like, I don't know if this will go down well in the chat, but I feel like the technicality of some of the productions of the Thilo and the Chris Vela stuff didn't matter to me. Like, it wasn't what I was at all. I was not invested in that at all. For me, it was a matter of, like, did you capture that quiet defiance and that kind of aspirational feeling of the song? And so for me, because that's how I work as a producer, I'm thinking about the emotion and whether it's captured or not. I just, the rest of it is like numbers. The rest of it is kind of academic for me a lot of the time. And that's for me why I would pick Janis Tura or Thura, or Janis or Janis Thura, or however you say that. So for me, that would be my pick.
All right. Chad is still tuning in. We're definitely getting some I'd say front runners from the chat, but while that's still coming in, Mr. Smith, if you want to let us know how you're feeling about it.
Yeah, it's funny. Basically, Chris or Thilo. They got. I think James, Mr. Blake, has just put a very good point across for why Janis/Janis is his favourite. I think all that makes sense. For some reason, it didn't connect with me. He's explained it in such a way that that maybe I should go back and listen to it. But for me, it would be, I think I'd go with Thilo. I just thought the mood of that one was where my head was at when I was writing it, and so off that alone, that's where I'd go for.
I mean, you wrote it, so like that's the best. Honestly, to me, that's your opinion. It comes above anyone else's, considering it completely. If it captured the way you felt, that's great.
I had and the interesting thing is that I had no preconceptions about how it should sound, because it was written as a spoken word piece. It wasn't. I never intended for it. Obviously, I knew it was going to be because of the competition, but I wasn't thinking about what everyone would do with my words and how they would envision them. So to be handed 5 pieces of great music, that there was themes running throughout a lot of them. I do think Janis, Thilo, and Chris were on a similar page, and I think Max and Gael were on a similar page with the sort of the jazz funk kind of led. I think there was 2 things running. Thilo kind of got it for me. That's
all right.
I'm at.
Well, I would tend to agree with you, Mr. Smith, about Thilo, and the chat seems to overwhelmingly agree that Thilo also was the best of the 5. Again, the best of 5 really incredible pieces of music. But
yeah, you're all wrong.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Sorry, Janis. I'm going to go back and listen to it again until I like it now.
Again. And
James argued his point.
So you love it.
Yeah, that's all my favourite albums. Took me like 10 goes. I hated Captain Beefheart when I first heard it.
Well, I think that's it then. I think Thilo Acorn is the winner of the Rhodes Missing Keys competition.
I felt quite underwhelming the way that. He's like, they're jumping up and down in there wherever they are. They've just got.
I've got a clapping sound effect I can run.
Do that.
All right, it's happening right now. Standing ovation, absolutely phenomenal. Thilo Acorn, if you're in the chat, please let us know. What we need you to do is email support@pluginboutique.com. All 5 of you. If you're paying attention, if you're in the chat, please email support@pluginboutique.com so we can get you situated with your prizes, what you won. And we've got 3 more V8 Pro licenses to give away. So I've got 6 names here, and we're giving away 3. So, Mr. Smith, what's your favorite number between 1 and 6?
6.
All right. Mr. Blake?
3.
3. And I'll go with 1 just because that's the spread. All right. We got Champ Flexington, Jan Crofta, and James Turner. Congratulations. You are winning a copy of the brand new first official Rhodes V8 VST plugin. And just like the winners of the competition, please email support@pluginboutique.com in addition to a screenshot of you logged into your YouTube account. And we'll get you sorted with an NFR for that incredible plugin. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming by today and taking the time to listen to and discuss these pieces of music. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope we can do it again sometime, if you would be so kind. So with that, I will let you get to it, get to your busy days, and we'll see you next time.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Love.
Cheers, Josh.
All right.
Cheers, James.